All right. Hi, everybody. David Fogel back with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation for another Symphonina Foundation podcast. And I'm joined today by Jonathan Estabrooks, VP and Head of Production of Emitha, which does production, design, and promotion of all sorts of things, including classical music, classical vocals. We'll hear a little bit about that. And also, Jonathan was one of the producers on Impossible Dream last year, which was Grammy-nominated music, and actually a whole production. Jonathan, it's great to see you again. I think we met maybe for the first time at one of the Grammy Museum events a couple of years ago. And
That's right.
kept in touch. And Jonathan just does great work. So I wanted to make sure that we get in touch with him and see what he's got planned for this year and a few other things. I did want to ask you, though. Okay, so you're a producer, you're a filmmaker. I'd like to know, like, you're an operatic baritone. It's on your bio. I've not heard you sing, but that's, Zoom's not really set up for that. But and a Juilliard grad, you got, I mean, just such a diverse background. We could start anywhere, but we'll start wherever you like.
Listen, it's been a journey, and isn't that life, right? And
Yeah.
I'm so blessed to have just had the privilege of making my art my life's work, and most of my life was spent as a singer, actually. Most people in my life know me as Jonathan, the redhead baritone from Canada, and I went to Juilliard and I had a career as an opera singer, and that was really great and exciting. But it was sort of around, I guess I want to say 2018, 2019, when I did my first big associate producing project for the Leonard Bernstein Centennial at Wolf Trap. And I had the lead producer ask me to come on board because he knew I'd worked on some projects, and I stepped in, and that had Misty Copeland, and that had Chita Rivera involved, and that had the whole Bernstein family. And so I ended up coming in and helping. Oh, George Takei was in that. Anyways, it's just incredible.
Wow. Okay.
And I stepped in and I helped, project manage this thing for about 6 months. And then, we got to the theater on the day of, and they had this multicam. It was like 12 robo cameras and 2 operators. And they said, we have this new system at Wolf Trap for the Jumbotrons. He says, we know you're a score reader. We know you're a singer and you're producing on this. And you do film and video. I was like, yeah, I made it. I made some videos as a kid, I ran around with the camera. I enjoyed that. And they said, well, could you direct the multicam? Could you score read? So in about 4 days, I stayed up, pulled these all-nighters to do a whole camera call list.
Wow.
And I ended up calling this multicam show. So I love the interconnection between visual media and sonic media. And, I've done a lot of music video production. I've done some music documentaries. And the way that I edit is so musical. It really is, because the musical beats of a visual edit, it has that kind of first, second, third act. It has kind of the ebbs and flows, the pushes and the pulls. So I've always been a visual learner. Probably goes back to when I had the wrong glasses at age 9 and couldn't read very well. I was never drawn to reading, and I struggled to sit there and read a book, but I love visual. I dream in color and I see things in 3 dimensions. So I guess it makes sense that the video is a big part of my life. And I don't know, I went in 5 different directions for you, but all that to say, they are so beautifully interconnected in a way that has allowed me to build kind of the career and the life of my dreams, really. I love it.
In addition to being a vocalist, then, are you also a musician?
So I will say vocalists are musicians, but
well, sure. So are clarinetists or saxophonists.
Yeah, right.
But that's.
I studied piano, actually.
I guess that's fair. I wouldn't ask our friend Julie Vivaldi.
No,
She's
I'm
also
kidding.
a musician. That's fine. But you know what I mean.
But yeah, no, I played piano for many, many years. The Royal Conservatory of Music in Canada has sort of a different grades. So I went up to grade 7, whatever that was. And, obviously I hated practicing piano. I loved singing practicing, but piano practice was always just, but that gave me a great basis for, for my life in music, but not really much anymore.
Don't play much anymore, no?
No. Now it's knobs and faders.
Well, you say that with a smile on your face, and that's good. So it's all about what brings us internal and external joy, right? So
absolutely,
I think that's
yeah.
What are you working on for this year? By the way, before that, congratulations on everything that I've only known you for 2 years, and just everything that I've listened to that you've produced has been like super, super, super great, high quality. And just
Thank you.
Just a delight to listen to. So congratulations on all of that, and I'm sure that whatever you're going to touch for 2025 will be in the same category.
I appreciate that. I have to say, 24 was a whirlwind year. Most of my year was spent focused on that Aaron Lazar project. It was an incredible opportunity. It was an incredible cause. It was incredible music and artists. It was tough. It was tough to celebrate, but also to be faced with a colleague and friend going through what Aaron has been going through and doing it with such courage and beauty. So I owe so much to the incredible team behind it, just hundreds and hundreds of people. And that's something that I always want to reiterate is the we, because as producers, and as artists too, I mean, it's so, I just wish the Grammys, the awards are so focused on the lead artists, for most of the categories, and producers aren't considered nominees in but a few categories. And I think about the fact that artist would never have been there if not for hundreds of people doing so many hours of work. And I was one of an army of people on that project. And I always feel that way with any project that I'm doing. And I say, having been a singer and having been the one out in front, I much prefer being in a leadership role of a team and having that team energy, because it's so much more rewarding. So I thank you for saying that, but I owe my gratitude to so many people.
Totally fair. And I get that too. There's when teams work well together, it's a delight. When they don't, it's something less than that. But
Indeed.
But you and I both had the good fortune of being part of tremendously good teams. So that's all good. What are you working on for this year?
Lots of really interesting things. So obviously, some people know me as a singer, some people know me as a producer and mixing engineer. So I also manage our in-house label. So Emitha has Lexicon Classics, which is our main label. And so we release a lot of stuff through that. And a lot of artists come to us with projects that are ready to go, and we handle the release side of things. But I'm involved in a bunch of really, really interesting projects. Two that I'd love to highlight. One is with an artist by the name of Will Liverman, who's a Grammy winner, and he's premiered a bunch of new works at the Met. He was the first black baritone to sing the role of Papageno at the Met only a few years ago. And he's gone on to just superstardom in the opera world. He also happens to be an incredible composer and pianist. And he grew up in a sort of gospel church tradition. And he's written these incredible songs to the poetry of Lawrence Dunbar, who, former slave and poet, really well known. And he is having a moment. His poetry and his wife Alice's poetry is really having a moment. And he has pulled up some gorgeous poetry and written these incredible pieces that really meld classical, art song, R&B, musical theater into this really, really unique sound. And so he's pulled in Isabel Leonard, Met star and Grammy winner Aaron Morley, the same. Michael Kilgore, who was nominated in the R&B category in 2019, and also was on the Warriors album with Lin-Manuel Miranda, that new musical project that just dropped. And he's just phenomenal. So just goes to show you, this project really runs the gamut of types of artists, and it very much lives in that compendium crossover world. So very excited. It's called the Dunbar Moore Sessions.
Okay.
So we had a volume 1 and the volume 2's coming out, and then that complete collection. And then a second really cool project in the vocal performance category is with a vocalist by the name of Devaney Smith and pianist Danny Zellabor. And they've pulled in, again, Will's writing a song for them. They've got Mark Adamo involved. They've got just a host of just phenomenal new young composers of, again, classical art song, kind of, just pulling in, again, multiple genres. And I really like to see classical music moving in a direction that is accessible, right? That isn't so ultra modern, isn't so all the way over here, like having elements that are programmatic. There's nothing wrong with walking away with a tune in your ear. It doesn't have to be seventh jumps and twists and turns just to be different, right? It's so the music's approachable. Yeah, the music's approachable, the music's enjoyable. And that's what we want, right? We want people to not see classical music as this scary, unrelatable thing. We want people to come to it. And that's something that you've done so wonderfully with your project. And
appreciate that.
Engaging young people and engaging new audiences to say, hey, like, this is cool. This is beautiful. This is fun. Maybe it'll get them to go to the symphony. Maybe they'll go to the opera even once.
Yeah.
So
Well, there's a percentage who go once will go a second time. So, that's
Yes.
the trick. So, but that's all great.
Yeah.
I want to ask when you're doing that, are you doing it mainly out of your New York based studio, or are you traveling all around? How does a day in the life of Jonathan Estabrooks look?
It's always different. I don't have my own studio, so I have obviously a mixing studio. I don't have a
Hmm.
recording studio. So we work out of a couple of spaces here in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and in Manhattan. We've had various projects go. I was actually at Abbey Road in London recording with the London Symphonia for a project, a symphonic project for an artist by the name of Vicente Alamo that came out. So again, wherever the project needs me to be, I'll be there, in a variety of capacities. So, and that keeps it fun and fresh. I say my way of touring legendary studios is to work in them. And so far I've got my Abbey Road mug now, and I have my Ocean Way hoodie, and it's just really cool,
Nice.
to share these spaces and the lore and the history that comes with them. It's very exciting, and I'm extremely grateful again for the privilege of being able to do this.
When we were talking a little bit before we got started about your academic career at Juilliard and before then. So I have to ask, I guess, when you were going to music school, did you have an idea that you were going to be doing production, design, promotion, things like that? And
Not at all.
not at all. So I guess that's a lesson to everybody in life and in general, which is to be open to the opportunities that come your way.
Hmm.
And the other other side of that, I guess, is be laser focused on what you want to achieve and all that kind of stuff. And there's a balance, I guess, and
Yeah.
making sure that wherever you are putting your energy is to good use. But yeah, a lot of
Yep.
times things come along that you don't expect to come along, and then if you miss that opportunity, you really could miss the opportunity of a lifetime. So, what was it along the way where you finished at Juilliard and you're working? Is there an aha moment that you're like, I really do want to do this production and help other people make their projects be A plus plus? I would
Great.
suspect everybody goes in thinking about themselves mainly. I mean, that's a
Sure.
human natural thing to do. But at some
Yeah.
point there, it switched over for you, and I'm curious about how that happened and maybe what lessons we can help others with.
Yeah. As New York is honking out my window. But yeah, it's interesting. I never envisioned myself being a producer full time. I always knew and always enjoyed the creative process. I had always, you know, recorded for fun, just played around in Ableton at the time and
Hmm.
just kind of recording things for fun. And my brother and I, when we were kids, we had a 4-track tape recorder. I remember doing vocal harmonies with my brother in the basement on the 4-track. And then I made a movie in high school, like a cop movie. I ran around for 2 years with my best friends, and we made a movie on our dad's camcorder. So I was always creating, right? I was always creating things, but I don't think I said, "Oh, well, I'm going to make a career of it." I always, singing was kind of the thing. It was, I guess, preordained. It's like you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And like my first professional gig, I was 7, and so it was sort of I was set on this path that like you're going to be a singer, and it was interesting. Kind of the shift really happened kind of in 2018 a bit, but it was cemented at pandemic time. And so many people have their pandemic stories. Some are really positive and some are really dark and everywhere in between. And it was the first time when I knew that I could take a risk without it throwing a wrench in what I was already doing. I could kind of do whatever because everything was thrown up in the air. I wasn't performing live a lot, and people knew that I had created things and had started to do production work. And almost overnight, I can remember April, May 2020, I had gone back to Canada, and my phone just started ringing off the hook. It's like, "Oh, I know you edit video. Like, I knew you do this. You've done that thing for them and this and that." It's like, "I have a church choir, and I got 40 cell phone videos. Can you, like, do this thing for services?" And it just took off. I can remember working 7 days a week. Like 2 months into the pandemic, I had never had so much work in my life.
Mm.
And I went, wait a second. I was fighting just to get an audition last month. And now I don't even have to ask for it. And everybody is begging me to do it. And I'm having to say no. I was like, what is going on? And so I really enjoyed it. I appreciated the work, but also it was just a different creative muscle. And it was really rewarding. And that's when I met John and Jillian, and we decided to join forces. Of course, John had built a playlist network, and John
Yeah.
Risen, yeah, and
Right.
Jillian, his wife, had her web design and photography. And we sort of said, why don't we three come together? And that's three prongs. We've got the design element, the production element, and the promotion on the streaming promotion side. And it really was a match made in heaven. And we've worked so well together, going on 5 years. And that's a long-winded way of saying, yeah, the unexpected, but it was like chaos. The chaos of the pandemic created the opportunity for advancement and change. And historically, and the story I always give is the typewriter. Hewlett Packard had the chance to buy IBM, I think it was. And they said, oh, we're just going to keep making typewriters. Typewriters are so famous, and no one ever was going to give up their typewriter. And they didn't buy the computer company. And sure enough, computers took off, typewriters, they almost went bankrupt because they didn't see the change and they didn't take the risk and jump into something new. They said, oh, we'll just keep doing what we've always been doing. It's like, no, like reinvent yourself. And so, 2020, I guess I reinvented myself and have never looked back.
Sometimes these little, well, they're not little, but sometimes events like that are catastrophic is not the word I want to use, but it was in that case, and it certainly was for the dinosaurs when the planet got hit by a big rock. But these things accelerate the opportunities in a different direction, right? They did they did for mammals, and they did for you and many others too in the pandemic.
Yep.
And so in that particular case, again, it's like the opportunity is there and you're seeing it, but it's another thing to say, okay, I'm going to quit doing that. I'm going to join up with these other people. I'm going to do something entrepreneurial, which is always risky, start a business and make a go of it and be successful in it. So, I wonder whether all of those hurdles were present in your mind when you started that, or whether it was like, oh, let's try this and see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it was a little of A, a little of B. I think I've always been kind of an extroverted, calculated risk taker. I think I do enough kind of looking ahead in my mind to go, well, what's the worst that could happen? If I try this for a year and it really goes nowhere, well, I'll go back and do something else, And I'm grateful for having the education and the network and the friends and the colleagues that I'm always, I guess I'm able to see opportunity in everything. I don't know, like I always, when I really don't want to go to that party, I really don't want to go to that thing, and I'm like, ugh, get out of the house, Jonathan, go to the thing, and I go and I meet somebody.
Because you're going to go to a party and someone's going to say, do you really want to be here? And you go, yes, I do.
No, but I mean, I say that to say sometimes when you go to a thing and you just don't expect it, but you put yourself out there, you will run into people. And the number of times I've run into somebody at something and it's turned into a beautiful collaboration.
Yeah.
There's opportunities everywhere. I think, did Oprah say it? It's like luck is your ability to recognize opportunity and be prepared to take advantage of it.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, I try and live by that.
That sounds great. So you got your projects for this year. They must already be in the can, as we say, or almost very close.
They're not released. Those two haven't released yet.
Do you have release dates for us to look out for? Or?
Yeah, June 20th is In the Short Life. That's the Devaney Smith, Danny Zelvor project.
Coming right up.
June 20. Yep, and then June 27th, 1 week later, is the Will Liverman project.
Wow. Okay.
A good friend of mine is also releasing with us, Sydney Outlaw. He's got a project that's coming out on the 13th. So that's another classical vocal project, but I wasn't really involved in the production side of that, but we're doing the release. I wish I could mention them all. We have a lot of really interesting projects. I know I mentioned the Vicente Alamo, but I'm really focused on vocalists. It's a big art song vocal year.
Yeah. I guess two questions for you then is one, when the release date comes, is that quote unquote when the work keeps going? I can't say when the work starts because obviously you've been working your butt off on the whole thing to get it to that point, but is that when the work really starts, or is that when you turn it over to somebody else and you're focused on whatever the next project is for the rest of the year or into 2026 maybe?
Yeah, so when the production stuff is done, I'm still running, I pretty much run the label. So I handle all of the metadata and all the back end. So I'm always keeping an eye on that. But it really kind of goes to John on the promo side. And he takes over kind of getting it, placed and pitched and all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And, oftentimes I'm creating content and I'm helping with social media for various pieces of content. We do a lot of making of videos as part of our packages. So we'll release reels and stuff. So there's a social media component that continues. But yeah, most of my work is done once it's been submitted for distribution. but it's a lot of checking in and optimization, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So you have other projects now that you're getting started on that are going to release later in this year or into 2026?
Yeah,
How are you doing?
Yeah, Christmas is around the corner.
It
Christmas
is.
in July.
It is. Yeah.
That's
7
no
months from
joke.
now, it'll be 2026. So, right.
I know. So I've got an orchestral Christmas album with a vocalist, crossover project. So that's with the arrangers now, and we'll start recording next month. And
Okay.
a few other projects are coming down the pike. I might be going back to London to Abbey Road for another orchestral project. Have meetings coming up on that. There's a bit of a lull right now, which is fine. It's a lot of meetings and a lot of planning for the next thing.
Okay.
But yeah, come August, September, it'll heat up again.
Yeah. Well, for those who are listening who want to get in touch with you and they have an idea for their project, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, they can check out everything that we do at Emitha. That's Emitha, EMITHA Studios.com. And they can always email me directly, Jonathan, JONATHAN, at emitha.com. And happy to collaborate and help in a variety of ways. Love to connect with people in the community.
It's been a pleasure getting to know you, Jonathan. And I think anybody who would want to reach out to you would be very happy with the results, of course, that they would get with you and the rest of the Emitha team. And if there's anything that we can do at the Symphonina Foundation to be of help to you, just let us know. We're happy to do that. We're going to listen to some more of the music that you've helped produce on the way out here. And until then, we wish you all the best.
Thanks, David.